Hey guys, before I start this video, I would like to first introduce myself to give it a little context. So my name is Jillian, and I am a business major with a particular interest and specialization in digital marketing. And as a marketing student, I have become sort of corrupted to see everything as an act of branding or advertising. Which it is when you really look at it. Anyway, through business school and while working in the field, #co-op life, I have noticed a key difference in the way academia approaches language and the way we approach language in the real world, quote unquote, especially from a business communication sense. I want to start off with an example. One of my favorite advertising campaigns of all time is the Got Milk campaign that started in the mid-90s. It's simple, clean, well-designed, and inarguably the most effective commodity marketing campaign in America's history. But here's the problem. It doesn't make any sense. From an English perspective, at least. Looking at the facts from a traditional academic perspective, Got Milk should have been a complete and total bust. It's not at all grammatically correct. It has no real meaning from a syntax viewpoint. As printed, there's no capitalization, and it sounds, in essence, like a caveman wrote it. Jeff Goodby, who is the mastermind behind the campaign, said in these exact words that milk is perhaps the most boring product imaginable. It is not new, it is not improved, it is white. So why was Got Milk so successful? It all boils down to that thing we call marketing language. The Merriam-Webster dictionary defines language as a systematic means of communicating ideas or feelings by the use of conventionalized signs, sounds, gestures, or marks having understood meanings. By this definition, virtually anything can be considered language. A red hexagonal sign that we intuitively know means stop, a facial expression that tells our significant other we are upset, or even an emoji telling a pizza shop to send us cheese with pepperoni. But in conventional conversation, we generally equate the word language to proper language, or what academics generally refer to as standard English. Meaning, we do not often include slang or improper grammar, or photos and symbols in anything visual. To quote one of my favorite grammar podcasts, The Grammar Girl, standard English is, in essence, the English that very few people agreed upon about 600 years ago and that we're now mostly stuck with. And to be clear, I'm not saying that proper English is unimportant or irrelevant. I am a big fan of grammar and beautifully written sentences. Marketing language actually does overlap with standard English, and in some cases, the academic side is still more important. But the problem is that when you teach that there is only one way to be right, it is only natural to conclude that every other way is wrong, which is just simply not true. In marketing, standard English rules don't really apply. And let's remember what I said in the beginning. Everything in the world is marketing. We could just as easily substitute the word marketing for effective communication of an idea. Anytime you introduce yourself to someone, you are marketing yourself. And when you have a conversation with a friend, you are unconsciously deciding how to best explain your thoughts. Even your English paper is just 10 straight pages of you pitching an idea to the consumer, in this case your professor. I think we can agree that effective communication does not always require a super strong vocabulary or impeccable grammar rules. Sure, sometimes it does help. You probably wouldn't submit a grant proposal in the form of a cartoon. But you also wouldn't tell a joke in MLA format, and that is 100% okay. In marketing and advertising, the rules are not the priority. The communication is. So sometimes, rules do help enforce the communication. But sometimes they do not, and we need to be aware when and why we should break the rules. And it really all boils down to audience. We communicate differently with different people, both consciously and not. Companies, individuals, friends, coworkers, potential dates. An email to your boss might look very different from one you would send to your mother. That is what I mean when I say that audience is the most important thing. Even though we decide the content of what we are saying, who we are talking to is what dictates how we say it. This is why the marketing world treats English so differently than the academic world. A person's relation to and understanding of language is what drives writing and creative direction. Marketers, advertisers, and people in general care less about standards and rules, and more about effective communication. Now, like I said before, sometimes marketing language does follow the rules. But what makes marketing language truly marketing language is the understanding that it is acceptable to bend or break the rules of standard English when necessary, when it helps communicate an idea more clearly to the specified audience. This is an easy phenomenon to spot in sales and advertising in particular, where the communication of an idea is the entire basis of the industry. Nowadays, it is not uncommon for ads to feature an incomplete sentence or contractions. You'd be hard-pressed to find a commercial written in iambic pentameter, as beautiful as that would be. A photo or graphic may communicate better than words in some instances. And improper grammar is sometimes encouraged if it helps the audience understand the idea better. Another difference in marketing language is that it also takes into account the relationship between words and visuals, whereas standard English has few to no rules regarding visual communications, as it is generally ignored. But pairing a phrase with a photo or illustration can change the connotation completely. Even the typeface or graphic design of the words themselves can affect the message of the advertisement. While standard English relies primarily on the words themselves, marketing language encompasses the entirety of communications, including the visual aspect. They don't teach you the difference between serif and sans serif fonts in high school English classes. Yet, you would be hard-pressed to find an advertisement with only text. And even then, you can almost guarantee that the text will have some sort of extra design element. A clean or elegant font, bold colors, or specific font weights and spacing. The visual aspects make communication easier between marketers and consumers because, even as important as language is, our natural state of being is not words. Humans default to sight. A toddler must learn language, but the interaction with photos and illustrations is second nature from the day he or she is born. In the same way, marketing language cannot ignore the relationship between linguistics and visual communication design. But I know what you're thinking. So what? Not all of us are advertisers, graphic designers, and copywriters. Why do we care? We still need to pay attention to the rules while we're in school. Which is true. But we are all communicators in some form or another. And knowing first that it is okay to break the rules when necessary, and second, how and when to do so, is invaluable in expressing our ideas to any particular audience. On the consumer end as well, check out this. Which ad are you more likely to pay attention to? This one or this one? Both are from the same company, albeit 100 years apart. The product, Ivory Soap, has hardly changed at all. But check out the difference in the length of the copy and the simplicity of the ideas presented. Which one is more likely to catch your attention? Let's go back to Got Milk for a minute. The campaign that Standard English says should have failed miserably. Why did it work so well in the midst of all its rule-breaking? According to Inc. magazine, there are 4 reasons it worked. 1. It was simple and stood for something. That's pretty self-explanatory. It was only 2 words, milk being one of them. It stood for milk. But second, it was actionable, which means it functioned as more than just an ad, in this case a reminder. People generally pay attention to things more if there is some personal relevance, like reminding you are almost out of milk. 3. It used humor, complete with Britney Spears' milk mustache and Michael Bay's explosions. It was part of culture. Which leads me to 4. It was integrated, and this is the most important key to success here. It was spoken in the day-to-day language of the people. You saw it everywhere, while at the same time never noticing it at all because it was mixed in with everyday life. It became part of culture because it followed the rules of that culture, not of academia. Think of all those BuzzFeed articles we all love so much. Fun fact, we actually spend more time reading what is called native advertising than we do reading normal blog content. Many of the articles we share on Facebook are paid for by other companies. This article, 10 Feelings All NYC Girls Have at Least Once, was paid for by HBO to promote the next season of Girls. This one, 15 Bands That Probably Wouldn't Exist Without Led Zeppelin, is paid for by Spotify. And I hope 11 jokes only Call of Duty fans will get is obvious enough. There's nothing wrong with that at all. Companies just know that in order to reach their target audience, they need to speak the language of that audience. I dare you to find an example of native advertising on the internet that does not break any standard English rules. Check out Taco Bell's Twitter or Denny's Tumblr account. Yes, really. The beauty of marketing language is that it can be anything. An ad, a blog, a photo, a phone call to a loved one. We market ourselves in different ways in all aspects of life. But in order to break the rules, you must first know the rules. The reason that a company can use an emoji in a tweet is because they know that the Twitter audience cares more about fun than proper grammar. But if they were to do the same thing in a letter to their investors, I guarantee you it would not end well. The beauty of marketing and effective communication is how seemingly natural, yet so artful and tactful it really is. Phrases like "got milk" and VW's "think small" or Nike's slogan "just do it" are as simple can get. But they encompass so many subtleties and nuances of the way humans process information. It has so much more to do with than just the words. Everything from the photos and colors to celebrity endorsements, from the location and exposure to the consumer's prior assumptions about the product. Consumers respond not to long, patronizing paragraphs of text, but rather to transparent, open-ended, and sometimes emotional appeals to their own malleable thoughts. The words themselves act as such a minimal part of the entire message, it would be unreasonable to consider the rules to be the foundation of all strong messaging. Instead, the language and copy's adaptability to the audience and its attention are what make or break marketing, regardless of the rules, standards, and regulations. So, in conclusion, having a generally accepted set of rules for a language is invaluable to the culture and future of the language. Standard English is by no means unimportant. However, it is also important for people, especially in the role of communicators, to understand that breaking those rules is okay and can, in fact, aid communication. Speaking the language includes more than just grammar and diction. It encompasses visuals, assumptions, and so much more in addition to the mere denotation of copy. Marketing language factors in all of these elements and puts actual communication as top priority, adapting to different people and audiences for clearer connections. The point? While rules are important, breaking those rules is just as much so. The key to effective communication is not grammar, syntax, and diction. It is human empathy and understanding your audience, and not being afraid to bend the rules to make your message easier to understand. I want to close with a famous quote from William Butler Yeats that I feel encompasses the framework of marketing language. Think like a wise man, but communicate in the language of the people. All right, thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.